You're listening to the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast, the show that proves no one stumbles upon success ever. With your host, Lou Need. Every Mondays and Thursdays, we deliver cold hard evidence behind the power of a robust morning routine. Get ready to be transformed by the renewal of your mind.
Hello, morning enthusiasts. Welcome to the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lou Need, and today I have the honor and the pleasure of introducing a very special guest to the show. I'm excited to have her on. It is Deirdre McGlashan. Now, she has been involved in all aspects of marketing throughout her career, from strategy to content, media, technical development, and data. But she brings decades of experience in executive positions for international businesses. Deirdre is all about bringing creativity back to marketing and teaching and using AI to help with the branding process of it. So I'm really thrilled to have her and have her expertise on it today. So with no further ado, Deirdre, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dr. Lanid. I'm so excited to be here.
I am thrilled. Your background is extensive, right? So you've been in this space for a while, strategy, content, media, and even some data aspects of it. Tell us about why that is intriguing to you.
Oh, yes. I think it's because I got lucky enough to come up in my marketing career, like at the very first days of the commercial internet. So technology and marketing has always been intertwined for me. And I think that's my why. That's what gets me excited. I am always so curious about how new technologies and old technologies can help brands better connect with their consumers and bring more value to their consumers.
Yeah, and that is forever changing. And recently it's been with AI. So you have to be very adaptable as a marketing brand strategist. Tell us about how you are using AI in helping your clients become more available to their audience.
Yeah, at BrandGuard, we see ourselves as an enabler for marketers to use AI, because as marketers want to get involved in AI and as they dabble, there are a lot of reservations. We hear people say, I don't trust it yet. How do I know the images are going to come out right? How do I know that it's not going to make a mistake? My brand is very valuable and I don't want to put it in the hands of a machine, which we completely understand. So what we built is a brand governance system. So think about it as quality assurance for your brand that can run alongside. So we teach it with you. We teach it your style, teach everything out of your style guide, teach it what you like, what you don't like, what you think is on brand, what you think is not on brand. And then it can act as a little agent. So when generative AI content comes through, it can score it for you. And then you can look at it, and therefore you can either have it make rules like anything over 95% you feel pretty good about, anything between 80 and 95% you want to take a look at, anything under 80 get rid of. You can set rules like that. Some of our customers just want to understand it more. So they kind of want to do machine review and human review to see how it compares and see how they can move it on. So we see ourselves not in the generation space, but very much in the governance space too, to enable marketers to feel safe using AI.
Right. And so there's AI and then there's machine learning. Machine learning, I understand what you just explained, is just about teaching it the key terms, the tone words, keeping it the essence of your brand. Now, the AI piece of it, let's elaborate on how that can actually automate some of the processes.
Yeah, so the machine learning part is like, the exact match stuff. But when we think about AI and particularly generative AI, we need that for some of the more complex rules. We have some customers who have complex rules, such as the models can be smiley, but not too smiley. That child can't be shown using technology without an adult present. And so those are the types of models that we ourselves employ more generative AI in order to create those models through a synthetic data pipeline. So we have a combination, you're absolutely right, a combination of different types and techniques of models in the application. So for our customers, a lot of them are using AI in the ideation process, like, help me come up with some ideas. And so kind of almost as an aid. Some are starting to use it in the content creation. Great, I've got an idea. Now I'm going to use generative AI to produce the assets, produce all the images, to produce, landscapes, to produce sometimes, the picture themselves and other times elements of the picture. And so as we see that accelerating, we think more and more marketers are going to do that. That's why we have built something that we think will be a good thing for them to be able to put in place so that as they use more and more generative AI, they have something that moves as fast as that generative AI to check in.
That's fascinating. It really is, because you're disrupting the whole marketing industry, being able to do that, because you imagine the time that it takes to create content and to actually hit it on the nail and actually get conversion. That's hard. That's really hard. So let's talk about how AI is adding value in terms of conversion and finding the target audience.
Yeah. One of the things from a media standpoint, I think that using machine learning to identify target audiences and to optimize has always been there. I think one of the new things we're getting with this generative AI is the ability to create hyper-personalized content. Mm-hmm. And so people can match their target audiences and now create hyper-personalized content for that. And that might be in the form of ad units. We've been talking with one customer about potentially they are a very large CPG and they're talking about wanting to have hyper-personalized landing pages. And so to the tune of 100,000 a day. So, how do you check that? And they're thinking of their landing pages may pull from different models, one model for the image, one model for a caption, one model for the body text. We're seeing more and more. And the more and more marketers I see speaking about where they see AI going, I hear the word hyper-personalization a lot. Mm-hmm. So I think that's where, that's actually where we started as a company. We didn't start out in the governance space. We started out in the generation space with hyper-personalization and a kind of a performance package. So hyper-personalized content made through generative AI and optimized on media sites such as Google and Meta. And so the more customers we brought it to, clients would say, yeah, that's great, but I can't check 5,000 images. Mm-hmm. And so we set out with the AI team to figure out whether or not we could teach machines to understand brands, to do the quality assurance. And that's when we figured out we could. And so we had this little module called Brand Guard. It was the quality assurance module within our whole thing. And the more people we brought it to, the more they would say, oh yeah, that's great. That's just performance marketing. Tell me more about this. How many, what channels can it look at? What formats can it look at? Email can it look at? And we realized actually that's where the need was. People were like, I get the fact that I'm going to use generative AI wherever I am in my journey. I already know that that's going to be a reality, but how do I use it safely? And so that's why we pivoted and we realized that Brand Guard, this little module, was actually the company. And so it became the company. We focus purely on the governance side and not the generation side, because we think that you need that independent third-party verification. Because every application, as you probably know, is building in AI capability. Every Adobe application, it's like, if you think about all the content creation, they're all adding it in.
Yeah, Google has a new one now. They want you to sign up for. It's everywhere. And you're right. The fear with entrepreneurs is that lack of trust. And will it do what it says it will? Or is it going to be click and paste or just suggestive? That's the worst part. It's just when it makes suggestions and it doesn't actually go in there and make the changes. And so and there's that. I can imagine that's one pitfall. So let's talk about some of the common pitfalls with all the AI that is coming out and the challenges businesses are facing to actually manage their brands using this stuff, and how your technology like Brand Guard actually fills in that gap.
Yeah, I think that some issues that we talked about, the trust, the quality, the quality of the imagery. Once again, so we check on quality. I would say the other thing that's more of a hidden thing that is an impact of AI, but it's an impact on the business, is a lot of our customers now have to have data security protocols for AI, which they didn't previously have. A security team around AI policies. Oftentimes they have an AI task force. So I think there's a lot of hidden overhead as well that every enterprise is undertaking in order to be able to safely engage in using AI. I think it's one thing to be able, and I think everybody's experimenting now. I feel like, this is the experimentation phase. I feel like people know it's coming. And so they better start now to learn. But, right now it's still experimentation. But once you start moving to scale, you do need to have all these policies in place. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of the other overhead is the time that it takes to kind of research your generation partners, understand and be very curious and ask questions about what training data was this model trained on? How is it being trained? How is it being monitored? How is it being tested? What's the quality assurance of it? So I think there's a lot of questions that we as marketers need to also ask, because we're in the even though it's amazing, these amazing, cool things, we have to remember we're in the very, very baby days of AI. This, believe it or not, this is going to look in 10 years, less than that, probably in 3 years. What we see now is going to look probably as dorky as the very first websites from 1996. Do you know what I mean? When it was all just pure HTML. In 3 to 5 years, people will be looking at these beautiful things we have now, like Soro, like, images that come out of Midjourney and it's Stable Diffusion. We'll be looking at them going, that old stuff. Can you believe that? Because we are still in the very early days.
That's like television in 95 years ago.
Exactly. But I think the key that we have to remember as marketers, as business people, is I think we always have to be questioning what's in the training data, how is it trained, how is it being monitored? Because unlike those others where it's fully human controlled, this so far has, generative AI still has human in the loop, which is good. However, it is making its own decisions. And so we need to understand how and why it's making those decisions.
Yeah. And then that's where our brand guard comes in. So actually facilitating that aspect of the decision-making process, or just monitoring it and watching it, make sure it's doing it what it's supposed to.
Exactly. We can monitor the output to make sure it's doing what you expect it to do for your brand. And so if you have key goals for your brand, if you have key never go there's for your brands, that's the sort of thing that we can monitor for you and make sure that nothing goes out without that gets flagged.
Yep. I have a lot of entrepreneurs, startups, smaller businesses that inquire about using AI embedded on their websites, embedded in their email marketing. How is it done? Can you walk us through that process? Because we know ChatGPT. Can we train ChatGPT to actually know our company and actually work for us? Let's dive into that.
Yes. Exactly. Well, I think that if you think about your small businesses and entrepreneurs and they want to get into AI, I would say that the best way to do it is most of our tools, as you said these days, have an element of AI in them, and just start playing around with it. I think if you go to, I know that Gmail has it. I believe Outlook has it, the co-pilot type thing. And so just start playing around with it, like check what its work does, check what your work does, and then compare it and see. That way you can start to understand how it's functioning and kind of dip your feet into it. In terms of wrapping it into your own website, you can use these tools in order to build your own GPT, for example, or your own chatbot. That's something that people are doing. And I believe that OpenAI with GPT-4, I know that you can have your own branded GPT as well. And so that's another way that you can start to integrate it into your product set itself. But I think the main thing with this technology, just like with all technology, is before you dive into the execution of it, you need to sit back and think strategically, what is it I'm trying to achieve? Who am I talking to? What am I trying to achieve? What's the strategy behind it? What's my objective? What do I want to get out of it? And then decide whether or not this is the right tool for you. Because you may find, okay, to reach my objective, I want these elements to be handled by AI, but I always want a person to do this element of it, rather than just going tool first. I think that we as humans love new things. And so I think we oftentimes go tool first and not strategy first. And I've always found for every business I've ever worked for, if you start with the consumer, you start with the business strategy, you understand your objectives, you get the best outcomes.
Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that. And so with BrandKit, how is it installed? How is it incorporated with the clients you work with? How do you do it?
So we work directly with the clients to get their style guide and some training assets. And training assets look like 30 to 50 on-brand assets, meaning those are assets that they say are spot on, like the pinnacle of their brand. And then 30 to 50, what we call off-brand assets that were created for them and didn't make the cut, because then the machine starts to learn that fine difference. Mm-hmm. And then we train the models, and then we work with our client to usually do a test session, like a half hour. We just run some run some imagery through, some assets through for scoring to get their feedback so we can fine tune that model. Then we fine tune it, let the model figure itself out over a few days. And then we do a second session with our customers and then get their feedback. And then by then it's usually ready to deploy. So in general, On average, it takes about 45 days. If a customer is very involved and, has the time to really work with us directly, we can cut that as short as they want it to be. And some customers say, okay, this is great, but I need a little bit more time with it. And it's going to take me some time to gather assets, et cetera, et cetera. And that timeline can expand. But what we find is roughly about a month and a half training with us, and then you've got a system ready to go.
That's phenomenal. Yeah, that means that's this overhead cost cut for future. So it's cost effective to do.
Yes, exactly. It is cost effective to do. And if you think about starting small and then building up. So a model is, as you know, just like, it's like a new employee. It may know the discipline, but it doesn't know your brand. So that's what it needs to learn. So at first, it's really good at spotting things like, is that the right logo? Is that the right font, et cetera, et cetera. Then as it gets more of a body of knowledge, it'll then be able to say, is that the right look and feel? Is that the right tone of voice with a higher level of accuracy?
Yeah. And that accuracy, you can type in the wrong thing or send in the wrong image and it kind of optimizes it or analyzes it, and then it messes up the previous work. How do one forego that or kind of prevent it from happening?
Because we don't do the generation, we simply call out if it's not the right look and feel. We simply call out it's on a percentage basis. So we can say this image, based on everything you've told us about your brand, based on the style guide and these other images, we think this is only 36% accurate for you. Then someone can look at it and go, yeah, I'm not, the 36 ones, I'm not going to take forward. And this might be a new designer, sourcing new stock photography or using generative AI to try out some things. Then they don't have to go bother the art director every single time. Mm-hmm. So it's always on a score. You may say, okay, we've got a lot of faith in the model now. And so we know that anything over 85, 90%, we're very comfortable with. Start using those in assets. Anything between this and this, we'll tell you why. That's a new feature that we're building out right now. We'll tell you why it got that score. And then you as a person, if it's a person doing it, can go correct it. And if it's machines, we were built for machines. You can just say anything under 80, we don't even want to see because it's generating 1,000 a minute. I don't need to try to fix something. I know there's a better one coming.
Yeah. For lack of better.
Yeah, exactly. That was a key learning we had because we built it for machines. We hadn't really thought about things like explainability because the score was the score. And because we weren't thinking about humans wanting to go in and correct the work because we weren't thinking about it as human-based work. And so when we brought it to customers, they said, yes, we will be there for generative AI, but today we have this problem just with people doing the work because we have, a dispersed workplace. Not everybody has the same understanding. People make mistakes. It's very common. And so we've had to build in things like explainability so that people can say, okay, I got a low score. Why did I get a low score? So that I could actually correct it. And so that was a new thing that we hadn't envisioned in the first plan for the application, but now we're building in.
Yeah. For lack of better words, this is so cool. And I really like the data aspect of it. It's data driven. You can trust data, numbers don't lie.
Yeah. Exactly. When the machine says this looks like stuff you've done before, or it doesn't look like stuff done before, you can't really argue with it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And one interesting thing is we have some customers that are looking at for rebranding. So they have a new brand. So the brand has a new look and feel. And so they can put that in as on brand and then their old brand as off brand. And that way it'll catch the most common mistakes that their marketers will make in probably the first year of rolling out a new brand, which I think is a really cool use for the tool.
Yeah. I agree. Okay, so let's talk about your morning routine. How do you get up, dress up, and show up to do what you do?
So I'm lucky because I am not a morning person, Dr. Lunid, but I am lucky because I have a wonderful dog. And my dog gets me up in the morning. My dog gets me out in the fresh air. My dog gets me out walking. And I love it. I love that way to start the day. We get up, we go for a walk. The funny thing is it's a routine, but also it's a sense of community because when it's that early in the morning, the same people have the same patterns in the morning. Once you get, into your workday, like all bets are off, you get a meeting, you have a this, people don't have routines anymore, but in the morning, everybody does. And so I see the same people. I say hi to the same people every morning. And it's lovely because it just makes a big city like New York feel like a small neighborhood.
Yeah. Yeah. Those little animals, they change you for the better.
Yeah, they do. They really do, don't they?
Yeah, they need their morning walk. My friend has one as well, and never walked in the morning, never exercised. But once you get it done, you got a morning, afternoon walk that got to get in. And I like how you're utilizing that to get yourself ready for the morning, to be part of your morning routine. Since you didn't have one yourself.
Exactly. Because my morning routine used to be, I could be out of bed and out the door in 40 minutes. That used to be my morning routine, optimization of sleep. And now it's a relaxed stroll with the dog and saying hi to people and getting a cup of coffee and having a little bit more time to myself in the day that I probably wouldn't have made for myself.
Yeah, and that's the power of it. And I bet you show up different to the office, to your clients, to your team, because you're now more calm and more prepared for whatever the day throws at you versus scrambling to get to them.
Exactly. That's very true.
Yeah. Anything else? Meditation? What are you reading?
Oh, that is a good question. What am I reading? A friend of mine just gave me a book called The Situationship, and I have not yet started it, but she just finished it and raves about it. So that is what I'm about to embark on.
Yeah, reading, stimulating the mind. Yeah, like it.
100%.
Tell us, where can we find you? Where can we connect with you?
Great. You can find us at brandguard.ai. You can find us on LinkedIn at brandguard.ai, I believe. And you can find me on LinkedIn as well at Deirdre McGlashan. And you can always send us an email at contact@brandguard.ai.
Fantastic. Deirdre, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Thanks so much, Dr. Lunid. This was fantastic. I really enjoyed it.
Fantastic. That ends the recording piece of it. We'll do edits and get it out to you a week before it goes live.
Great. Wonderful.
All right, morning enthusiasts, that's it for today's show. Thank you for tuning in. If you love the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast, we'd love to hear from you. So go ahead and subscribe, rate, and give a review on iTunes or Google Play. While you're at it, tell a friend about the show. Be sure to visit bestmorningroutineever.com and our Facebook group to join the conversation, access the show notes, and discover our fantastic free bonus content. Until next time,